Yeah, so I didn't finish the 50 miler. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Runna, your favorite local running community. It's me, Juliana, back for a solo episode. We are here. We are back. I just ran my first 50 miler attempt. So I just did my first 50 miler attempt yesterday. We have talked about my prep for this on the pod, on the channel already, but we are going to do a brief recap / debriefing of my 50 mile race ultra attempt. Yeah, that thingamajiggy. But before we get into that, don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure that you are part of your favorite local running community every single week here on Runna. So I am thinking that I want to go through this race where I was mentally, and then we're going to talk about the positives and the negatives and things that I think I can do better. We're also going to do a attempt recap with Ben, our favorite Benjamin, who is going to come back on the pod and do an interview with me, who will probably ask me questions that, like, if someone was here to ask me questions, I would think to answer. But I'm by myself right now because I really just needed to talk to you, my friends, because I need to talk to someone else about my experience and not be socially obligated to then have to listen to someone. So thank you so much for listening to me blabber on about my experience running the Stone Cat Trail Festival 50 miler. So as you guys know, this is my first ever 50 miler attempt. I am a baby trail runner. I only started trail running almost about a year ago now. I only ran my first ultra in May, and it was a 50K and not a 50 miler. And I really like the longer distance stuff. I like the trail stuff, but I'm not like married to the trail stuff, nor am I living my best mountain goat life, which will be very exemplified in this attempt that we are going to be talking about. This is the 50 miler is part of all the distances that they offer as part of the Stone Cat Trail Festival. I know that there was a 10K, there was a marathon because I crossed paths with the marathoners at some point, and there's a 100K, which I crossed paths with one of the 100K guys at some point, and it definitely there was a fair amount of people for a smaller race. And this happens up in Ipswich, Massachusetts, and it's on a 12.5 stated mile course. By my watch, the loop of this course was 3.4 miles. So 13.4, I'm sorry, miles. So yeah, a little bit off. We're really leaning into that like fluid 50 trail math kind of zone here. So like I said, this was my first 50 miler attempt ever, and I failed. I had a DNF. I did not finish, but I'm not counting this as an actual failure. On the contrary, I actually feel more like an ultramarathon runner than I ever have because I have my first DNF under my belt. Would it be better for me mentally if I didn't? Yes. Physically, in the state that I was in yesterday, would it be better? No. I think the thing that exemplifies this the most is as I was coming back through to finish up lap 2 of the course, because I ended up doing about 2 laps of the course, which was about 27 miles for the day, which wasn't terrible, you know. I was coming back onto the field where everything started and stopped, and there were 2 guys who were part of the race organization, the Trail Animals Running Club, or TARC, who were standing there like kind of making sure people went the right way and cheering for people. And they cheered for me. They were like, good job. I was like, yeah, it wasn't the day I wanted. And then in unison, they said back together to me, we both been there. I was like, okay. So it's like a shared experience amongst the trail running community and the ultra running community that not everyone is going to finish. And we talked about this before, but I have now I've graduated to intermediate baby trail runner now that I've completed successfully an ultramarathon trail race and successfully DNF'd. So I want to just talk briefly about the things that went right, because I learned a lot of things about this. And like I promised, there are many things to be learned here. So things that I learned that went right. 1, My gear was great. My pack was fantastic. It fit perfectly. I had no chafing at all. My choice of shirts was great. I had the LL Bean long sleeve merino wool, 100% merino wool layer, covered by a short sleeve merino wool layer. And then I had over it my wind cheater jacket, which is an essential piece of gear if you live on the Cape or anywhere near the water. You need some kind of like windbreaker that's like 100% windproof. This thing was great. The night before the race, it was windy as all hell. All the leaves that were on the trees came down, and this will come back to us in a minute. But they were all over the ground, but it was windy at the beginning of the race. So my gear was great. My nutrition strategy, weirdly enough, worked out great. Doing liquid / pudding or less textures the night before and the day before, and then just doing liquids and like dissolvable candies, more or less, on the race course went great. I had no GI issues. I pretty much just took like 4 or 5 pisses in the woods, and that was really the end of it, you know? It was nothing of note, which was great. And what a first time for me, honestly. So we're dialing that in. Nutrition went well. Gear went well. Shoes I felt went well. We went with the good Puma DV82s. The grip was great. Almost too good, honestly, because I was catching my toes on so many things. But that went really, really well. I stayed warm. My mittens were great. My hand warmers stayed warm the entire time. My phone didn't lose its battery power. I had a hat that worked really well that I love. So I feel like gear-wise, that went well. Getting myself set up went really well. I was able to leave my stuff there, and I was able to self-crew pretty well. So I felt like that was really wonderful. I feel like the thing that went the best for me was the fact that my endurance is in a good place. I was reconfirmed in that my endurance is in a very good place. I was able to like mostly run, but like a little bit of walking, slowly running, but on a pretty like up and down course in the trails and tripping multiple times, which we'll get to in a minute. I was able to do 1 lap, which is about 13.4 miles, and come back and turn in not the best of spirits, turn myself around and go back out onto the trail and pretty much walk a full second lap. So I like jauntily walked like another 13.4 miles. And I came back from that. I was like kind of tired, but like I could have gone back out into the course if I knew it wasn't going to be like kind of testing the cutoff. And also I wasn't so like mentally demoralized at that point, because the first lap mentally put me in a really bad spot, like really bad. We'll talk about that in a second. But I didn't feel winded. I didn't feel like I was done for the day. So that was great, because I was out there on my feet about 7.5 hours, and I felt like I still had plenty of fuel in the tank to keep it trucking, you know? So I feel like my endurance is in a very good spot right now, and I'm very happy with that. Also, I'm happy with my mental ability to just like get back up and keep going and to not give in. And also, I'm very proud of myself and my maturity to know when it was done, to know that like I need to check in with myself and this is not my day. And being able to walk away from the race course, like I went running this morning and I was pretty much okay. Like I'm pretty like creaky in a lot of spots, and we'll talk about that. There's some bruising going on, but definitely I feel like I tapped out at the right time. I still did 27 miles. Like I still went over a marathon, but I didn't push myself to run the second half. I knew that I had the time on the clock, and the day turned out to be really gorgeous as the sun came up. So I was like, I would want to be outside in the woods anyway. So Juliana, you might as well just spend your time like walking, trepiding through the woods and just taking in the sunshine. And so that's what I did for the last lap, the second lap of my experience. So those were the things that I think I did right. Also, I don't think I'm done with this. Like, I feel like a lot of people would have had the race that I had and would have been like, nope, this is the end. No more ultras for me. And that's it. I feel a little bit kind of like not ready to hop back on technical trails right now, or like semi-technical trails. We're talking like Juliana wants like service roads, you know, like nice sand roads, like flat, like rolling hills, but I don't want rocks. Me and rocks right now and leaves, we're not on good terms, which is okay. It was just yesterday. So we have time to make up. But for now, rocks and leaves and myself, we're not on good terms. I respect the leaves for the vibes, The rocks, not so much. But the relationship we established yesterday is it's a toxic relationship. So we're not going to have any of that. So I feel like I'm in a good spot, as good of a spot mentally as I could be. I even talked to some of my other ultramarathon running friends, and some of them were like, yeah, no, after that first fall, Juliana, I would not have picked myself back up. I'm like, well, I did. And we kept moving, you know? So let's get to the things that did not go so well, because as you might have noted, this is not a success when it came to completing the 50-mile distance. And I've hinted at the fact that things did not go quite right. So let's just step through the day. We'll see how this goes. So I got up at 3 a.m. The start was at 5. I got to the starting line right around 4:15. I was able to use the bathroom. They had indoor bathrooms at the school there, which was great. 10 out of 10 for indoor bathrooms. We show up to the starting line. My headlamp, actually, I will give the Fenix headlamp that I have a 10 out of 10, because I feel like it did the exact job that I needed it to do, and it did a great job, and it was easy to operate. So I really love the headlamp that I have. I'm glad that I have it. I'm glad that I thought to get a headlamp too, because there's no way I would have even made it off the starting line if I didn't have a headlamp. I would have been so fucked. So I'm glad that I did my research. I had a really good headlamp that definitely threw the light out as far as it possibly could have, without being like one of those like huge, like really, really, really like huge throwing headlamps. Like it threw it out like a good 200 feet, and it was decently bright. So it did the job that it was supposed to do. It did the job that it was supposed to do. So we show up at 5 a.m. start, we head off, we get into the woods. As soon as we hit the trail because you go across the field and then you hit the trail, I realized how pitch black it was going to be. I'm not someone who is good at night running or dark running or feels comfortable with that. And I guess I didn't realize when I signed up for this, I didn't think through that this was in November and that the sun's not going to come up till like 7:30, and it was 5 a.m. I guess this race used to start at 6, which makes a lot more sense, but it is what it is. So it was pitch black. There was no light, absolutely none. The light we didn't get light for 2.5 hours. So we were in the pitch black for 2.5 hours in the woods. So like any remnants of sunlight that started to creep up over the horizon, we didn't see it. It was pitch black. So we get into the woods, and it's kind of like a little bit of a single track, and it's a little bit of a backup at first. But the thing that I remember the most is as soon as I got into the woods and we started like getting our way onto the trail, every cell of my body said, I want to quit. I'm done. Let's stop. We need to stop right now. Usually my instincts are pretty good about that. It doesn't necessarily mean that like I actually want to quit, but it usually means that like we should eject ourselves from the situation, or we will be ejecting ourselves from the situation, and this is not our day. I like to say that my intuition is pretty spot on when it comes to those things. And I was trying to be like, Juliana, we just got here. Like, don't quit. I know you're not super comfortable with night running. Like, we're just going to try. We're at least going to make it to the first aid station. And so we got out on the trail, and I will say, very well marked, very well marked. They had these little like pink flags that had reflective chips on them. So if you threw your headlamp up into the forest, you could see the direction you should be headed in at least. Problem was leaves. All the leaves from all the trees were on the ground. I'm going to describe what we did on the first lap, or what I did on the first lap at least, as running through a rock field blinded. You couldn't see anywhere you were putting your feet. You literally couldn't see where you were putting your feet at all. And that was part of my problem, was that I could not figure out where to put my feet because I couldn't see what was underneath the leaves. And at the same time, I was trying to orienteer on a course that I didn't know in the pitch black on my own. After like the first 5 minutes, I was by myself for the most part. So that was kind of the end of that. Like I was just out in the woods fully by myself. Like I ran into people here and there. And there was a poor guy who I passed like 2 miles in who had already sprained his ankle. And I was like, oh no. And I kind of like was like, oh no, is that like foretelling the future of like our race? Kind of was a little bit. So I was fully by myself. So trying to figure out where to put my feet, not being able to see anything, not knowing the path. Like I don't know this trail at all. I've never been here before once in my life. We're in the pitch black. And I'm trying to figure out where the markings are on the trees while I'm moving. And so that leads us to, one, The entirety of this race, I think I threw my ankle out to the side and like almost fully rolled it out at least 8 times. Twice, I was very worried that the pain that I was having was permanent. Luckily, it was not. I did bruise the top of my ankle. I honestly think that was just from the rolling plus I had an insole in my shoe, and when I'm walking, that part of my foot hits that part of my shoe a lot higher and harder. So I think it was the rolled out, just more vulnerable muscle right there, and that being hit on the top of the shoe in a way that when I'm running, it doesn't hit there, but when I'm walking, it does. So I did bruise. I did not end up with an actual sprain as of right now. I went running this morning and I didn't have any pain. So it's good. We like that. I made many an ankle turnouts on this course because, again, we couldn't see what was beneath us. I couldn't see where I was putting my feet, and I didn't know where I was going. And I'm just not someone who like has orienteering built into my soul, and I'm just not someone who innately knows directions well. On the contrary, people will argue that I am very bad at directions. So that is that. But definitely, I was strained to figure out where I was going and looking up, looking down. And this was also a course that in the dark, in the pitch black, it was a very like windy course that like was not intuitive while you were in the dark and couldn't see like 100 feet or more out from where you were standing. In the light, you could see exactly where you were going because you could see like thousands of feet out and you saw the direction the trail was headed. And it was very obvious where you were going when you could see that far out. But at night in the dark, you couldn't see that. And again, Juliana's not an orienteering bitch. I'm not good at this. I'm trying my best. Okay. And so I want to say like mile 4 is where we started the tale of many falls. I haven't really fallen much at all recently when I've been trail running. I would say I average like probably 3 to 4 trail runs a week and about 1 fall a month now. And it's usually something small and not detrimental, and it's not anything like terrible or anything. Like I've been really good about not falling. I'd say 1 trail out of like what? How many is that? Like 12 to 15 trail runs a month. I'm falling once out of all that time that I'm on the trails. I feel like that's a good statistic for the most part, which is not the statistics of the race that I ran. So around mile 4, my toe just like, I remember looking up because there was like a brush kind of incoming, like that had a lower brush incoming. And I looked up because it looked weird with my headlamp. And I noticed what it was. And as soon as I like put my head up, I caught my toe on something. And I actually just fell on just some like softer ground with leaves and just like skidded across the leaves. That was more of just like a system shock. I don't think I really retained any injuries from that besides like a little bit of like shoulder shock. Like, you know, when you fall on something, you can kind of just like feel it across your body. So I think I have a little bit of that from that. But 4 miles in, I was already falling. I was very nervous. And like all of my senses were like going off. I didn't have like, it was just me in the woods. Like I didn't have any music or anything like, because I wanted to be fully aware of what was happening around me. Because I'm fully aware that I'm in the dark alone. I have my headlamp on full power, nothing in my ears, just me and my thoughts by myself in the woods, just trying to figure out where the fuck I'm going. Just really like watching for these reflective things, which again, very well marked. They did a great job. So we fall the first time. It's a shock to our system. And I think to myself, okay, great. Maybe that's like usually whenever the thing that's happening that my body can sense is causing us anxiety, or like the world is, I can kind of like sense when trouble is coming. Usually when that said thing happens, my body kind of like relaxes. We didn't relax after that first fall. In my head, I was like, okay, we got our fall because my goal was to only fall once per lap. Okay. We exceeded that on the first lap for sure. So I was like, okay, there's our fall. We're good. We got it out of our system. There wasn't really any injuries from that. It was just like a skid across the leaves. Like we're okay. So I get back up. We keep moving. We keep moving. We keep moving. We keep moving. I want to say around like mile 7 or 8, we passed through the aid station around mile 7. And a little bit before that, I tripped again. I tripped again because I'm trying to navigate things in the dark over rocks that I can't see on a course that I don't know, still in the pitch black. Still in the pitch black. It took me about 3 hours to complete lap 1, and it was pitch black except for the last half an hour of my time out on lap 1. So we fall the second time, and the second time I fall, it pretty much is a replica of fall number 1. I fall the classic Juliana style, this arm down, which is why I have all these little like dings right here. And then I fall on this hip and I just kind of skid across some leaves again. This time a little bit harder than the first time, but again, there's no injuries being acquired here. Like I feel fine for the most part, like a little bit of shock again through the system, just getting back up and continuing on. So we roll through the aid station, and I told myself, like, I'm feeling really terrible and this is not our day. We're going to drop at the aid station. We go through the aid station and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. We're not even close to the 50-mile distance. The sun is not even up yet. We know we're not great at night running. Let's just keep on moving. And so we keep on moving. And then somewhere around like 9 miles in, I want to say, is when I took my first like significant fall. So I fell and I slammed my head on the hard ground. So my toe caught, I fell. I'm pretty sure it was the ground. It could have been a rock, but I'm pretty sure it was the ground. And I slammed my head on the ground, and I like have like my ears are ringing for a minute, and like my head is like pounding, and I'm like, is this the end of my race? Do I die out here in the woods? Is this it? And I know that like the aid station is a couple miles back, but you know, and someone will probably pass me at some point, but I don't want to be just like laying out here in the woods if I don't have to be, you know? So I get back up and I start walking. And I can feel like the side of my head throbbing. And that's where, I don't know if you can see it, I have like a nice like bruise area starting like all through here. And that's where there's some bruising behind my ears too. And so I can feel like the bruising starting. And the ringing kind of goes away. There's no headache starting. I don't feel nauseous. I don't feel like my vision is changing. I don't feel confused. I know where I am. I've almost had a concussion before, so I know what the symptoms are. And so I'm running my head through that as I'm walking. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm okay. And so I start running again. And at this point, the sun is like kind of starting to come up, but not a ton. And around like mile 10, I want to say, I am running. And I get to I think I was at some like boggy place, and I fall and I slam this side of my head again. And this time it was like closer to back here. The first time it was like here. The second time it was like back here. And I have a little bit bruising there, so I probably shouldn't have done that. At that point, I'm like, I want to quit. I want to quit. My head is killing me. I'm like, am I doing more damage to myself than I am progress? Like, is this worth it? And at that point, I'm just like, I don't know. And so I start walking for a little bit longer, and I find this other gentleman who has started to do like a walk run. And he was telling me that he had signed up for the 100K, which is like 60 plus miles. And the furthest he's ever run in one go is 13 miles. And I said, God bless your soul, my friend. And so he is walking at this point. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to walk and talk with this guy and just see how I feel, and just double check in with my brain that like when I'm talking to someone, I'm like coherent and things like that. And I talk to this guy. I'm definitely in better spirits than he is, and in better shape regardless of everything that happened to me thus far. And we get like to around like mile 13. So we're like technically, according to my watch, not according to the course, about half a mile out from the finish line area. And I'm talking. I got a little bit distracted, I think, and we're walking, and I catch my toe on something else, and I fall like directly on my chest over here. And I just like fully knocked the wind out of myself. And like definitely, I'm very bruised through like here. And it's definitely like a bruising on the skin. I was like, oh no, did I like break something? I didn't have like any like immediate pain when I fell either for any of these, except for like the head ones obviously hurt. And like it hurts to physically fall. But like I know what it feels like to be in like stabbing pain. And I didn't have any of that. So I was like, okay. And I was able to keep moving. But at this point, I had fully decided that I had been going through a lot of mental anguish because of all these things that had happened. Like, obviously, like rolling out my ankle like 7 or 8 times. And this is all in one lap. This has just happened in the first lap. This wasn't even any of the other laps. So lap 1, rolling out my ankle like 7 or 8 times, and then falling 5 separate times, 2 to the head, 1 to the chest, 2 to the side. And then just feeling like today is not my day and having this large overarching sense of anxiety the entire time. I kind of made a pact. I was like, Juliana, it's not a smart idea to keep moving. And I was telling anyone I came in contact with, I was like, yeah, I took, just to like justify it to myself, because we have to justify things to ourselves, because like, what does it mean if like we just quit, like, are we just quitters? Like, are we making things up? And so I was telling people that, and I wanted people to make sure that I wasn't bleeding or anything either. So I was having people just check in, be like, hey, can you look at the side of my head, make sure I'm not bleeding? Okay, great, thanks. And we got to the turnaround point, and I had decided at that point that I was just going to try and walk one more lap at least and like see how I felt. We'll head back out onto the course. The sun was fully up at this point. And this is where we come to the fact that like the course looks completely different in the sun as it does in the dark. And I was like, because if they had started this race at like 7 a.m. even, and we had only had like less than half an hour in the dark, this would have been a completely different race for me, which is a lesson that I'm learning too, that like, I don't want to start a race in the dark unless it's a course that I know really well, then that's fine. But if it's a course that I don't know, I'm refusing to start any ultramarathon in the dark. Absolutely fucking not. So that is a lesson that I learned for myself. But I got to the turnaround point. I had the really wonderful people who were working at the aid station who were so kind, the most kind humans in the entire world, all the trail running people, trail animals, the TARC people. And they checked my head. There was a woman who was like, yeah, I can see some bruising starting over here on the side of your head, but you're not bleeding. And she's talking to me. She's like, you seem coherent. I was like, okay, I'm going to go walk. And if I need to turn around, I'll turn around. She's like, okay, great. We'll see you. And so I get back out onto the course. And at this point, I had told myself, I was like, I'm going to try running if I feel like I can, because my body had like pretty much like wonked itself like this. And I was just like not feeling correct. And like, even, oh my God, today, like, holy fuck, my body is so like, oh, janky, man. Oh no, it's not doing great. I've been worse for sure, but like, it's just the trauma of the falling. I can like feel it because I fell through both shoulders too. So it's like reverberating, and like my back can feel it, and like my foot, the top of my foot is bruised, and just like my head hurt, everything hurts. But that's okay, because we do big things, so we learn things. And so I got back onto the course, and I was like, we're going to walk until we feel like we want to run. And if you want to run, you can run. If you don't want to run, you don't have to run. And for a lot of it, I didn't run. I didn't feel like I wanted to, because as soon as I got onto the course, I started running for a little bit, and then I almost tripped again. And I realized like how much the first lap had like mentally fucked me over and put me in such a negative spot mentally. And that was really the big thing. Like, I definitely was like physically, and still am, like messed up with all the bruising and just like the amount of like strain and trauma that is in my body. Don't worry, I have massage this week, I have acupuncture, I have PT tomorrow, so we'll see. And I think Ed is going to do some dry needling on me, so that'll be good. We'll get ourselves back into our better affairs at some point. But getting back on the course, I just realized how much the last lap and the first lap had put me in a bad spot mentally. Like, I could physically start running again. Like, I wasn't physically done. Like I said at the beginning, like I got to the finish line and had completed about 27 miles. It's like 26.9 or something, whatever. I was like, I'm done, whatever. Fuck the last point. I'm technically over a marathon already. And I was out on my feet for like 7.5 hours, like up and down on some pretty like up and down terrain. So it wasn't just like, oh, Juliana's just taking a very casual, and I was rocking at like a 19-minute mile pace. Thank you so much. Okay, great. So I got back on the course and I started running again, and I had that first almost trip, and it fully hit me how it was the mental side of things that was really putting me in a spot that I couldn't run the last part, because I just couldn't mentally fathom with falling again. I couldn't, like, mentally, even when I was walking and I was like almost tripped a couple of times, but because one of your feet is planted when you're walking as opposed to running when you're like largely just in the air and you just kind of like whoop and just fall forward. I was able to catch myself. I didn't fall at all on the second route, but I maybe ran like a mile or two of the entire thing. Like I didn't actually run much of anything. It took me like 4 or 5 hours to, what would that put? Yeah, 4 hours to walk the second lap, which is fine. And mentally, I was okay for the most part when it came to staying out there. Like there were some points where I was like, I want to quit. And then I was like in the middle of randomly in the middle of like a trail where I knew there wasn't a quick exit point. So I was like, you're here already, Juliana. And like, what are you going to do if you stop? You're going to want to go outside and be in nature anyway. So just like keep your ass moving, okay? Complete at least a full marathon today. You came all the way out here to do something, okay? And so I just kind of got myself in that mindset, but I realized like how much I just like mentally couldn't fathom running again with the potential of falling. So it was definitely a physical battle for sure. And I definitely learned a lot. And the mental side of things was very interesting to me because it was not the mental battle I thought I was going to have. I figured I would probably reach a point where I was so tired that I just needed to keep moving. And like that was going to be the mental battle because I would just be so exhausted. But that wasn't it. I was just so exhausted with falling and being in pain and hurting and slamming my head. Also, I was definitely worried that like there was something else going on with my head. And like as soon as I came around to the end of lap 2, I was like, no, I'm done. Like, this is it. Me picking up another lap was not going to do anything beneficial to me at all. And I wasn't winning anything. I wasn't getting anything out of this that I couldn't have already gotten out of it. And I feel like 27 miles is a respectable distance, you know? And to cover that in 7 hours on a trail when you fall 5 times and almost twist your ankle out at least 8 times, I feel okay about that, you know? And I'm trying. I'm trying my best. And we learned that I don't want to start any of my trail races on a course that I don't know in the dark. I really would prefer for the whole thing to be either in pretty much the sunlight or the light, or to at least establish the course before it gets dark. So I was looking at the Anchor Down Ultra that happens in July, and you start that at 7 p.m. in July. So the sun is definitely still out at that point. And it's a 3-mile course loop that you follow. So I could definitely get through it a couple of times before the sun sets and know where I'm going. So that wouldn't be a problem. Definitely the combination of the dark, the orienteering, and the leaves covering everything led me to fall a lot and be in quite a bit of like residual pain today. And also I'm proud of myself for making the mature adult decision to step away when I did and to meet my body where it was in that moment. So, and I'm glad for me not quitting right away either. So I could have walked away, but I didn't. And I'm proud of myself for getting back up. I know there are plenty of other runners out there who probably would have fallen once and been like, nope, that's it. But this dumbass here kept going. So I feel like I did as well as I could have done. And again, now I feel like an official ultramarathon runner because I have a DNF under my belt. Thank you so much for asking. Do I still have some mental trauma from this? You betcha. Am I going to go run on trails with rocks for a while? Absolutely fucking not. You can pay me. I'll go run on like the bogs or like the flat little like areas of sand. That's fine. But I'm not going to go run with me and rocks. We're on a need to know relationship basis right now. And leaves, we like you for the ambiance, but not for a carpet. It doesn't work well for us. No. But that has been my ultramarathon experience, my 50-miler attempt experience. It is not my last experience, hopefully. I would like to take on more ultra distances. I would like to take on the 50-miler again. I think I can do it, especially one of the things that I came from this is the fact that like my endurance is there and I finished 26 miles and I felt fine. Like, except for like all the stuff from falling, like I was like, I'm good. I could keep going. And just knowing that, and that Ben and I went on a 20-mile run about a week or so ago, and I was like, I'm good. Like my endurance is in a spot where I know I could conquer the 50-mile distance. I just have to find the right venue for it. And this was not the venue. This was not the day. And that's okay. not everyone has their day, and everyone has a better venue that's better for them. So I'm definitely angsty against rocks, definitely in a lot of like residual pain, which is not ideal. And definitely just kind of feeling like yesterday wasn't my day, but my day is coming. And I'll finish a 50 miler. I think I will. I got this, right? Right. Okay, friends. Thank you for listening to me rant about my 50 miler experience, getting this out of my system. We'll have an interview with Ben and I where he can ask me the questions that I forgot to answer here. And that will be coming to you at some point in the future. But until then, don't forget to like and subscribe so that way you can become part of your favorite local running community every week and just stay in touch with what we're doing here and what I'm doing here over on Runna. So I'm very proud of myself. I'm very proud of you. And I love you all so much. And I will see you very soon. Bye. And fuck you, rocks. Thank you for listening to this episode of Runna. This podcast is edited, hosted, and produced by me, Juliana Coughlin. Brought to you in part by the Falmouth Running Club and the Falmouth Community TV station. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on Instagram and on TikTok at RunnaPod. And you can send us an email at runnapod@gmail.com. And our original theme music was brought to you by the one and the only wonderful Jeffrey Hutton. And keep up the great work. I'm proud of you.